Hello and welcome to episode 2 of my second attempt at Space Age. In the first episode, we built a factory, built a small little starter factory that allowed us to make a slightly bigger factory. We then tore down that starter factory, put a big bus in it. More things happened, we built a lot of things, then we've arrived here at oil. And the plan for this episode, at the start of it anyway, don't know how long it's going to. I don't know how long any of this is going to take. To be honest, the plan for the start, at the moment, I want to finish off this oil, and that means I'm going to need to build in this lake. That's going to put me too close to these biters, so I need to take out some of these biters, just get a little bit of land back again in order to get this space that I need to finish off this oil. Now, there is a slight issue in that I've only got 290 cannon shells. Those are all of the ones that I made in my starter factory. Those are the ones that I have left. So I'm really hoping that that's enough, because I don't, from a time-lapse perspective, I don't want to turn any of this on until it's finished. Anyway, I'm hoping that 290 shells is enough to get this initial bit done. We're going to have a whole load of more biters removal in this episode. I need to get down here to this patch of uranium at some point. And not a million miles away either. Once I've done oil, the next thing is nuclear power. So that's going to be pretty soon. So I need these cannon shells to get me this land. That will allow me to build the oil, and then I can get to the nuclear. Yeah, that's the plan. So we are just having just a little bit of a hiatus. At the moment, the time lapse, you won't have seen, there's a bit of the time lapse that I've been working on these paths, but I've stopped the camera when it's up here. You really want to see this when it's finished. I kind of lost heart a little bit with it at some point. And there were plenty of other areas on the factory that I wanted to work on. And this hiatus is kind of it's caused solely by the thing that I'm going to build in this space. It's caused by the uranium. Like in the old Factorio, we could research uranium pretty much whenever we wanted, as long as we have the right science. So I would just build that science, and then I would research it. And from that moment until building the nuclear power plants, I'd be building all of the centrifuges and the nuclear plants, whatever, that I needed in order to build the thing. But I can't, that couldn't happen because we've got a new Factorio now. And in that new Factorio, I need to physically mine uranium in order to research that. So I can't start constructing the centrifuges and all those other bits and pieces until I've physically mined uranium. And uranium, it's not like we can run over to a patch of uranium, mine a single piece of ore, and then run away again. You know, we've got to have complete control over that patch of ore, and we've got to have, you know, defenses and everything else. So it's not something that we can just get. So anyway, the point of all of this is that I'm waiting for my centrifuges to construct so that I can build the next thing, which is where the camera is moving to. I mean, that's what I want to move on to next. And I've got all this time to burn because those things are taking a long, long time to happen. So I'm kind of taking care of the bits of the factory that I'm just taking care of the little odds and sods to a certain extent. For instance, like stone in the first episode, stone blocks was one of those things that I was like, I'll find a hole for it somewhere. It'll find a home at some point in the future. And sometimes when I make that sort of decision like that, to kind of leave something on the back burner at some point, I just completely forget about it. And I kind of arrived at a point yesterday or the day before, where I was like, where am I actually going to be putting stone? So I kind of had a look around the factory. What I've decided to do is to follow the same kind of basic structure that I've got in the rest of the factory, which is that I've got these kind of 2 train stations up here, one for copper, one for iron. I'm going to do the same down here, iron and copper, just reflected. So I've got this one here for oil. It makes kind of sense. I've got this extra hole here. Why not put stone in it? The reason why I don't like it is because it results in this block which doesn't occupy anywhere near as much space as the oil. I think I'm just going to fill it with solar panels. You know, this bottom half of the factory, I think I'm going to have the same issue, which is that here I'm going to have the train stations for uranium feeding the nuclear power, and then I'm going to put the coal power, the coal train stations here, and I'm just going to build some steam turbines in here that may be kind of about the same size that I've got the stone, and then fill in the gap with solar panels. That's probably what I'm going to do. Yeah, anyway, so I found that's the hole where stone is going. This is the hole where the coal is going to go. I've also been running around and adding a whole lot of roboports and upgrading all of these chests to storage chests so that the robots know where to put stuff. You know, these are not insignificant tasks, but they're generally quite boring. Whilst I've been sitting here waiting for the centrifuges to construct, my mind has wandered, and I want to go through some things that, you know, I've got a few comments about from the first episode, and it's made my mind wander off in a particular direction, and I want to explore that with you. So what I want to talk about is the general design of this factory. You know, how I've decided to put certain things, why certain things are the certain shapes and sizes that they are, etc. Now, in order to kind of get to the bottom of this, we need to go right back to the beginning. So right back at the beginning is this part of the factory here. This is what I'm now calling it my engine room. What I used to call this area of the factory was the centerpiece, because I would build this area of the factory first, you know, the iron, the copper, the steel, circuit boards, the green, red, blue, all of them I would build first, and then that would define the shape and size of the rest of the factory. Like if I needed to separate 2 parts of the factory with a path, then I would define the position of that path within the centerpiece, and then it would be up to kind of my creative endeavors to make that geometry work for the rest of the factory. But we're not playing that game no more. We're playing the new one. So the centerpiece is now no longer the centerpiece. It's now the engine room. And I don't know whether we actually have a centerpiece. For what it's worth, at this moment in time, the centerpiece is the shopping mall. But that might not be the case at some point in time. I'm imagining that I'm going to build some ginormous set of foundries in here, and I want to attack quality. So I might need a second shopping mall that builds stuff just for quality. And that, so there's no real, so the term sense, it doesn't really apply anymore. The centerpiece doesn't work anymore. So whereas before this would define the geometry and shape and size and position of paths, etc., that's not the case. Now the shopping mall is the thing that has defined the position of these paths. So when I got to the shopping mall, this is what was on my mind: was how big is this stuff? What is the shape of it? So I didn't really know what shape or size I wanted it to be. What I knew was that I wanted it to be symmetrical. So whatever I build up here, I'm going to build the exact same down here. Exact same thing, exact same factory, exact same shape and size, whatever. So if I've got a path here, for example, which I have, which I wanted, and I knew I wanted one in some location, this horizontal path going across, then the position of that path would need to be reflected exactly to the bottom half. That was what was really, really important to me. So when I was approaching this shopping mall, I wanted to make sure that the top half was the exact same shape and size as the bottom half. Now, the size is irrelevant because I wanted this vertical path. That was going to be a straight line. So, you know, once I've defined that path, it's the same for everywhere. What we're actually talking about is the distance between these two paths, you know. And as I said in the first episode, when I was approaching the shopping mall, I didn't really know the size of things that I was going to need. I was anticipating having to build beneath this path because that would have matched up with where where the science is. Like at the moment, I've got science above this path, but I've got nothing below this path. So I've got nothing to kind of reflect it in this side. So when I was approaching this, I thought, oh, there's going to be loads of shopping mall in here. That's not what played out. What played out was that I ran out of things about here. So, to go back to the start of the story, what I did was I built the top half of the shopping mall first. That defined the position of this path. Then I came down to the bottom half. I built roughly where this path was, just a few pieces of it, just so I knew where it was. And then I aimed to fit these three segments, these three blocks, in the same size and shape that this one was. That was kind of my goal. And I built the top half, and I built the bottom half, and then, once I'd got all of that set out, I built this path here. So, you know, one step was on top of the other. I came here to the top half. I built these three blocks. That defined the position of this path. I came down here. I've tried to squeeze these three blocks into the same space so that it was married. So that position of this path married up with this one. And then once I'd done that, I drew this line straight down to make sure that it missed all of the machines, that it was also railway compatible, because I'm constantly conscious about things being on a railway grid. So for all of this stuff, the wall is tight against the railway line. It'll be the same on the other side as well. Like everything, the position of this vertical line, it wasn't fixed until the last moment when I'd built everything else. And that's kind of how I've approached everything. So, you know, this bus, I've put 100 tiles in here, just the same as I put 100 tiles in here. That defines the position of this path. The distance between this path and this path is defined by the mysterious block that I'm going to put in here, which I've constructed, and it's going to fit in this space perfectly. What that means is the stuff that's around it doesn't quite fit in it as well. So, you know, at the moment, the thing that's determining the size of the distance between this path is kind of invisible. And from there, it's really just a case of squeezing everything in. Now, this is often a case that I find when I'm building these sorts of factories, where I'm kind of trying to line stuff up perfectly, like get everything geometrically perfect, is that sometimes I just get lucky. Just complete fluke of nature that I can't predict. You just build and suddenly something fits in the space just perfectly and you didn't even try. And that's exactly what happened for me in this factory with science. Like, all of this science fits this block, and the marrying block on the other side all fit in these spaces perfectly. I did not legislate for that. That's just a complete fluke. You know, the fact that there's one tile gap here and one tile gap here, which is what I would have chosen to do if I was given the choice. The fact that that sits in there nicely, that's just luck. That's just the way that it goes sometimes. So that's really the basics of how I set this structure out. You know, I don't have a plan. I just build, and then I try and fit that building and plan into some kind of amalgamated factory, laying like layers on top of each other layers. Like we've got a layer for the railway underground. Everything has to intersect in a way that pleases me, and getting those details and those junctions right, it's part of the game that I love. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about, just the basic structure of the factory, to be honest. Now, in terms of what we're going to be doing, is that nuclear power. We need that nuclear power. You know, my plan at the moment, the first place I want to go to is Fulgara, and Fulgara is not an easy place to go to with solar panels. So I'm just gonna build nuclear power on my platform right out of the gate. But specifically for this one, I'll probably use solar panels for the ship that I'm going to use to get to Vulcanus. So I need that nuclear power. There's no point moving forwards without it. Now, in other kind of news, I have been expanding the base as well. That's another thing that I've been doing in this meantime, where I've been waiting for these centrifuges to build. So we've got more space down here now. We've got this patch of uranium that I wanted. We've now got it. We've also got a second... Oh, I didn't see that one. I've lined all my perimeter walls with radars now, so they're kind of revealing to me a bit more of the map than was there before. I might have to expand a little bit more. You see, this area north, I've got no real access to it. I don't want to create access and just invite the biters to come to me. But this would be some nice land to get access to, because it's really close to the factory. If you imagine this kind of... If we imagine a circle around the factory, this would be just what I would expect. So this area is very attractive to me. I don't know if I'm going to get to it. Anyway, let's move on with the next thing. We've got a path transition to finish and some nuclear power to build once we've got some centrifuges. So, a few things to talk about here. Firstly, we've got nuclear sorted, and the Coverx is running. That's basically because other things that I'm about to talk about have given us access to Coverx. So that's going. I'm happy about that because that's going to take a very, very long time. It's always nice to get it going. Just happy days. Happy days. We've also moved the camera over and started to film the rocket launches, and that was the space in the factory that I had set out for this block. Like, I'd left this block gap, I built it and sized it and made sure that this was going to fit in here perfectly, and it fits in here exactly the way that I wanted it to. That gives us lots of size. I think we've got 24 here, and then we've got another 24 which potentially goes in here, but at the moment we're really shy on the blue chips. That's a consequence of copper. We don't really have an awful lot of copper in the base at the moment. I mean, all right, we do. I'm just not mining it. We've got this patch here which I'm mining. That's it for the copper at the moment, I think. Maybe I should upgrade it. Maybe I should add a few more train stations. That probably leads to another problem, which is that these are the copper train stations at the moment, and I'm waiting for this patch of coal to deplete before I can finish it off. So I've got these two. So I've got one train run. Have I got both of these trains running? So they are. Maybe I can upgrade that. Anyway, that's why we're not getting many blue chips, is because we've not got enough copper. And I am trying to, I have launched a lot of rockets in order to build this next thing, which is this platform. Now, I'm a little bit conflicted about this platform. So I didn't really have a set purpose. I think I set out to build this thing with the idea that it would do white science and it would get me to Fulgora, but I think I might just leave it here just to do white science, no rockets or nothing, no fuel, and build an entirely separate ship for Fulgora. I want to have nuclear power on it. It needs to have nuclear power on it. And this one I haven't really developed it. So I mean, the idea is here. I'm trying to think of the future. So in the future, once we've conquered Gleba, we'll get this second asteroid process, this second method of way we can process these asteroids, and we get extra things. We get copper ore, we get sulfur, and we get calcite. And so, although so I've built that in for the future, like, I'll just swap these top crushers will become that new asteroid processing, and then these ones will stay. This is more or less the same setup that I had for the first playthrough. I actually tried to come up with a slightly different way of laying this out. I tried a couple of different ideas. Well, I've come to the conclusion this is kind of the most elegant way that I think at the moment. I might have a few more plays with it in the future. So in my mind, the top half of this factory is kind of fixed. Everything from this meteor processing upwards is fixed. And the bottom half is kind of open to further development once I get access to those things. Like, I don't really feel like I can finish off this platform until I get those future asteroid processing methods. And do I even need to finish it? Like, if it's just going to sit here and deliver white science to the novice, is this not enough? I didn't build it with a clear sense of purpose. That's where I am with it. So I think I'm probably going to build I'm certain of that fact, actually. I'm going to build a whole new ship for my trip to Fulgara, which is going to include nuclear power, because power over there, solar power, difficult. Now, what I did was I built this, and then I needed it to build up a whole lot of resources. I've had a whole lot of stuff be delivered to the platform in preparation for my trip to Fulgara. This has all taken a lot of time to build up. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of rockets here. This is another reason why we're shy on the blue chips, is because whatever blue chips I had in the factory have now been used to deliver all of this stuff. And this is probably not all of the stuff. We probably need a few more bits and pieces along the way. But it's a decent start. But whilst I've been waiting for these things to fill up, I've had time on my hands, and I haven't really had much to do in Nauvis, and I don't really like that sort of situation. I don't like just sitting around waiting, so I've got cracking on a thing that I had in the back of my mind that I've started to kind of build. I started to build in the back of my mind, probably, I don't know, halfway through. Well, in fact, probably at the point where I reached the end of Fulgara on the first playthrough, I was like, right, next time I need to make a spreadsheet because we're dealing with probabilities, percentages, we're processing a certain amount of scrap, and I want to really understand what we're getting out of that scrap, the quantities of the materials, how do I build a factory to accommodate all of the different things? Because all of this stuff's scrappage, each item takes a different time to scrap, and we're producing different quantities of each of the item. So how many recyclers do we need for each of the item? Like, that was my main lesson when I came away from Fulgara, was spreadsheet. So I've started to build that spreadsheet. Here it is. Now, this is the bit for Fulgara. Let's go to the beginning. This is the picture that I had in my head. So this allows us to set up where we're doing the science in the first place. Obviously, these 6 sciences, these all need to be done in specific places, so we get no options with regards to these 6 sciences. I'm pretty sure that we won't be able to do these sciences on a kilo, but I don't know whether I'm building that capability in. You have to be a maniac, I think, to be able to do that. And I'm not sure about anything about this Prometheum science pack. I've got no idea about it yet. I've not been there. So we're going to leave that, and I'll probably fill it in when we get to this run. And the idea is that we set an SPM target, and then we tell the spreadsheet what proportion of that SPM target we want each planet to produce. So if we wanted, say, half of the automation science to be made on Vulcanus and half of it to be made on Nauvis, that's how we would set it up. If we want it all on Nauvis, then we would give it a value of 1, give it a value of 0 on Vulcanus. So we can kind of program in different ways that we want to set this factory up, this potential factory. And then the idea is that I'll have a spreadsheet for each planet. Now, I haven't really worked on any of the other planets yet because we're not in a position really to talk about SPM targets on any other planet. I'm not really talking about, when we get to this Fulgara one, I'm not even really talking about SPM. I've built in the SPM, I've built in all the capabilities to calculate that, but that's not why I've built this spreadsheet for this at this moment in time. I built this whole right-hand portion just because I set out on a course and I just kind of carried on and got my head down. I also had some time while I've been waiting for these rockets to deliver the resources to my platform, so it's not been wasted time. The bit that I really wanted to concentrate on was this left-hand portion. So these are the base percentages we get from processing scrap. If we are producing, so we've also got this table produces the number of scrap we need to make all of the things we need to make for science. So the calculation is that we work out all of the things that we need to make for the science, and then we work out which is the maximum, which is the worst case item for which thing needs the most amount of scrap to be able to produce that one single thing. Oh, what timing.
A few moments later.
Oh, great timing there from my work calls. You can't miss them. Anyway, so the critical calculation that we're talking about here is we want to determine which is the critical item that we need to make the science with regards to how much we make, the percentage that we need a certain amount of these things. We get a certain amount of percentage. So which is the worst case scrap? So that's what this is doing. It's saying, okay, it's adding up the amount of blue circuit boards we need, and it's saying how much scrap do we need to process in order to get those blue chips. Same with the red, same with the low density structure. And then it inputs that max scrap into these numbers, and this gives us the raw quantities that we need, that we get as a result of processing this amount of scrap. We also get a certain amount of this stuff from other scrappage, like if we recycle a blue circuit board, we get a certain amount of red circuit boards, this many. And if we recycle this many red circuit boards, then we get a certain amount of green circuit boards. Then if we recycle a certain amount of green circuit boards, we get a certain amount of copper, cable, and iron plate. And if we recycle that, everything. This is our key amount of ingredients. We scrap this. This gives us more stuff. So that we need all of these. These are kind of the core ingredients that we get from all of the scrap. If we wanted to scrap everything, then this is how many recyclers we would need. These are slightly. there's a recursive element to this which I haven't included yet. I'm still working on this. Like we have a certain amount of things, we feed that to a certain amount of recyclers, that gives us 25% back. This doesn't, and then that 25%, when we feed that back in, we get 25% of that back. I haven't included that recursive figure yet. I think I'm just going to add a recursive number up here. You know, it's one of those numbers that you can look at until infinity. So mathematically, there's a very precise formula for it. I don't know what the formula is. I'm just going to bodge it. But I'm going to put the number in there so that if you are mathematically minded, you can put the perfect number in. Anyway, that's what this does. It works out how many recyclers we need to be able to recycle all of these things. Okay? And then this recycler is the one that, how many recyclers do we need to recycle the overflow? So we only need 26 blue chips. We're making 26 blue chips. We only need 13. So this is the number to recycle 26 blue chips. This is the number to recycle 26 minus the 13 that we've got up here, the sum of all of these numbers. Now, so these are the numbers that I want to generate, because this allows me to investigate, you know, what SPM versus scrap do we get? Like, I've got 240 SPM in here at the moment. This requires 1,313 scrap in order to produce, which is a lot of scrap. Now, once again, I've put in the factors in here that we can modify this. So if we can research scrap recycling, if we say got to a point where that was doubled, we put 2 in here, and then that would halve our amount of scrap that we need to make. The factors are here for me to play with. I just need to work out. I just need to figure. It just gives me a baseline for me to be able to just play around with Fulgara whilst I wait, or whilst at least waited for that ship to fill up. Now, I got off the call and I wanted to make sure that segment kind of carried over from the last segment, and I was looking at my spacecraft. And I've kind of realised this confliction, this kind of confliction between whether I didn't really know what I was building, is now actually, because I've got these resources here. This now needs to be my Fulgara trip. This ship needs to get to Fulgara. It's got to deliver these things. So This ship is change of plan. This ship is now my Fulgara trip. I think I'm gonna have to demolish most of the stuff that I've got up here for the white science and retrofit. Probably not that much. Maybe I'll leave the white science just in case. This ship has now got to get me to Fulgara. I want to add some nuclear power to it. I don't think that would be too bad. Oh man, I'm a complete doofus. This whole platform, just I approached it with the completely wrong mindset. Anyway, we've got more things to do. We need to get to Fulgara. I want to get this spreadsheet into action. I want to build that base, Fulgara, and mech armor. Man, I want to get mech armor sorted, and I want to start on quality, because the journey through equality begins on Fulgara when we get the 3rd quality module. And there's so much to talk about, so much to do with regards to quality when we get there. Well, actually, no. We can start quality on Fulgara. That's the plan. And then we get access to the refineries on Vulcanus. And those two things combined will allow us to go back to Nauvis or stay, you know, and rebuild my engine room with all of the calcite and the molten stuff and everything. Just, I'm so looking forward to making that thing perfect, and I'm really looking forward to trying to impose quality on it. I've got so many ideas. I've had so long to think about it. Anyway, more to do. Alrighty then. So, Fulgara, attempt numero dos. And to be honest, it's much the same as my first go. It's a mess. Like, we can't build perfectly because we're building on a weird shaped island and we've got to contend with cliffs. Now, there is a part of me that feels like I should have just turned the cliffs off. Like, I've turned them off on Nauvis. Why wouldn't I just turn them off here as well? The reason why I didn't do that was because cliffs, I feel like on Nauvis, are like a mission critical thing. Like, I need to set up a decent base camp on Nauvis that's going to feed the rest of these factories, and having cliffs in the way, that is mission critical for me to get that Nauvis base right. So I can't have cliffs there. Whereas cliffs here, like, they're a nuisance and they're a pain to build around. But ultimately, this is, in my mind, just a starter factory. And in much the same way on Nauvis that we demolished the starter factory the moment it became not useful, we're going to do the same here to this one. So, you know, I can build around cliffs. I can do that physically. It just leads to a mess. I mean, it might look like a mess. It's a lot more sophisticated than it might look. Like, the way that these scrappages interact with each other is quite fiddly. And that was kind of the exercise that I went through with the spreadsheet, was to try and understand what, I mean, I know that some of this might seem obvious, but I really wanted to understand the flows of materials, and that's what kind of, building this after building that spreadsheet, I have a much greater understanding. So, I mean, to give you an example, like, this is blue chips. We're going to recycle blue chips. Out of the blue chips, we get the green and the red ones. Now, the red ones, they almost, we don't want to do anything with those. We want to feed those right back into the start of the process, because that's the belt that's going to overflow. Whereas the green chips, because they're not coming from anywhere else, we need to recycle them almost straight away if we've got too many of them. So the flow of the material is different because we're making red chips already, whereas we're not making the green chips. And iron plate's a little bit awkward as well, because we get iron plate from the green chips. So I've brought that all the way down. I've added that to the iron that we get from the batteries and the gears. And then I've kind of turned it back on itself again to bring it back up to feed the rest of the factory, and then the scrap comes down. You know, in my mind, I'm still trying to figure out the perfect flow. How do I get, what is the perfect position of all of this stuff? But, you know, if I haven't, you know, ultimately, if I haven't got access to a perfect piece of land, then there's no way I can even investigate. So although I feel like I'm getting to grips with it better, I'm not able to get to grips with it in a kind of layout or an aesthetic perspective. It's just a, you know, from a input output, joining this belt to that belt, where does this one go perspective. I think I'm getting to grips with it, but the way that it's set out, that needs a lot of work. I mean, and then from there, we've just got a whole load of the stuff that we're going to need when we get to the big factory. You know, at some point, I'm going to make a big, squarish factory somewhere on this map with the fancy landfill, so I can fill in the ocean of oil. And all of the things that I'm going to use to build that factory, I really want to kind of build here. So it can kind of do its thing whilst we're on other planets. Like, it can just continually build those things. Thousands of conveyor belts I'm going to need, inserters, assembly machines, etc. All of that stuff. Just be really nice to have a store of it ready to go when I come back here, and I don't have to put it all on rockets. You know, I'm making all of this stuff anyway. What else am I going to do with it other than scrap it? So yeah, I'm just going to use it and let this stuff build up in the meantime. We've got the science set out down here. And we're pretty much ready to go, to be honest. I've got the science is being made here, and we've got the 3 ingredients we need for the rocket silo here. Now, this leads to, I'm going to talk about it anyway. I've been a doofus. I've been a huge doofus. Let me tell you about my doofusness. So I put down Factorio for a couple. This is my excuse, by the way. I'm going to feed you my excuse, and I'm going to lead to the problem. So I put Factorio down for a couple of days. I just needed a little bit of a break. I went and did something else. And when I came back, I was under the impression that I was ready to go to Fulgara. Like, I was ready to make this trip to this factory. I was ready to go. So that's what I did. I just emptied my inventory into some boxes. I jumped on a rocket, got on my platform. I added some rockets to the platform, you know, so that it could get somewhere with some fuel and what have you. And then I just landed on here. And then I landed on here, and I immediately regretted my decision. Immediately. Like, I landed on here and I hadn't sorted out my armor, so I just had solar panels in here. Now, subsequent to that, I've been able to deliver the uranium and all of the things that I need to make two of these from Nauvis. So I've been able to get access to these, even though I haven't got access to the uranium on Fulgara. But what I don't have are robots. Because, I mean, honestly, I'm a complete idiot. My robots up here, they are in steel chests. My logistic robots, my construction robots, they're in steel chests. And what I forgot to do, neglected to do, was put any construction robots on the network. Well, a grand total of 0 of them. So I can't build anything. I've got no I mean, to be honest, the robots haven't been too bad. I mean, none of the stuff that I've been building on Fulgara has been repeatable stuff. It only really came to light when I started to build the battery arrays that I need for power that's going to collect the lightning. That was really the only thing that I probably could have done with it with, but yeah, so I need to get back. I mean, this has other ramifications as well, because I didn't fully set up Covrex before I left. I was just had it going on like one belt, one side. So in order to get the other 2 sides to work, I need to fill in these 2 belts. I've done the same. So only like a quarter of the Covrex was going. And I haven't fed it with the iron plate I need to make the fuel cells. And I haven't like plumbed in the water. I came back with the impression that I was ready to go, and I clearly was not. Anyway, so the roundabout way is that I need some electric engines in order to make a rocket silo, and I don't have any electric engines because I can't put them on a rocket. So I need to actually go away and make a part of this factory that's going to make them on Fulgara. Now I suppose that's not the end of the world, but that's I suppose it only really comes to light because I'm telling you about it. Well, maybe I shouldn't have done. And it's where we are at the moment. It's the thing that we need. It's the thing that I don't have currently. It's the thing that's stopping me from building the rocket silos. So the course of action at this point is to build some rocket silos, load up my platform with some science, because I've got some in here. What have I got? 1200, 1.2k. Like, that's a lot of science. I can make use of that. Get access to like the mech armor and the quality modules. But I'm going to need to get back to Nauvis and fix those things. So I'm going to do all of that at once. I'm going to take the science with me when I go back, fix up Nauvis, get access to the robots, probably come back with some roboports and update this base a little bit. And probably build a purpose-built Fulgara ship with nuclear power, which is what I should have done right from the get-go. If I'd just waited a little while longer and realised that I wasn't quite ready, then that's maybe where we would be right now. But we're not. So, yeah, that's where we are right now. But, for the purposes of this episode, that is it. I'm going to leave with my mistake. That's never a good idea. Man, I'm due for maybe part 3. Ugh. Anyway, I hope it's been good. See you next time.